and Hyde, and tonight we have a special guest, Rebecca Dollinger. She is the host of the podcast Your Voice Matters that airs on Fishbowl Radio Network every Thursday at noon, and she has been hosting that show on multiple platforms for, you said, over 4 years, correct?
Well, for here, about 2 years.
Here, 2 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can catch her show, which we'll talk more and more about as the episode unfolds, Thursdays at noon. But today's episode, we were kind of catching up and chatting beforehand. Today's for the ladies, all right? We're going to talk a little bit about, Rebecca's journey in helping women find and use their voice in all kinds of professional settings. And we really want to hear from you on that. And I'm excited to have you on.
Thank you.
And just kind of hear your journey and your story and wherever you'd like to start, and then just kind of letting us know a little bit of your background, and we'll go from there.
Well, hi, I'm Rebecca Dollinger, and I am so grateful to be here. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Background. Okay, I grew up in I'm a Dallas girl, really.
Okay.
Yeah, so I grew up in a big family. At the time, we lived out. It wasn't incorporated into Dallas. Anyway, it was a farm. We lived in a farming community. So it was a good way to grow up. Because, you had, everybody has chores, right? But you have all of this outdoors, great imaginations, you have a lot of hard work. But you also, I think it helps you mentally and physically to be grounded to yourself. Because I was an outdoors girl, so I was always kind of in the trenches, you know. But I think, to me, I wouldn't change a thing. Because it kind of like, you're out with nature. Yeah. If you ever get into a spot where if you just can't think, go outside. Yeah. It's the best medicine you can. But yeah, I went to school here and college here. But I love it. I love Dallas.
Well, you've seen it grow here over the years. I mean, I can only imagine. Just kind of, watching that unfold, because now it's the population has boomed here.
I live in DeSoto, and when we moved out there was only 12,000 people. Now we have, I don't know how many, like 40,000.
Oh, okay.
It's just too big.
Yeah.
So I got into I belong to the American Businesswomen Association.
Yeah.
So through my writing and everything else I had done, I began to realize women they weren't a priority. They weren't noticed, or they felt like what they had to say was not important.
Right.
Have you ever been in a room and somebody says the same thing that you said, and they notice what you have to say, but the person just said it didn't.
Yeah. So, kind of how we were talking before, your podcast, and just it sounds like the mission and the things that you do is making sure that even if a woman is soft-spoken, right, that her story gets told in a setting, on a platform where, whatever that story is, it gets heard. And you've had a lot of guests and spoken on this topic a lot, and it sounds like really grown that passion over the years. And maybe a bridge just for those who watch my show for like mental health and growth and those kind of realms. I know you've touched on, but I'm sure maybe you could highlight for us here just a few ways that you've seen when women have a platform to be heard, to share their story, just kind of the changes that you've seen walking with women in that journey.
Well, yeah, I mean, even myself, I remember I was, I'll talk about myself for a minute. Yeah. I remember I ran for District 2 Vice President of the American Businesswomen Association. And that's a big deal. It's national. And one of the things that they required was you had to give a 3-minute speech, couldn't be over 3 minutes, and in front of at the national conference. And you know how hard you really practice, and but I remember having to walk out there, like 900 people, maybe 1,000, 10,000. It was like huge, and they're out there, but it's all dark, right? And it's almost like it comes over you. You have to take a deep breath, and I'm thinking, okay, Rebecca, you can do this.
Mm.
You know, you have to talk to yourself. That's really important. You know, tell yourself, you know, you can do this. And it was funny because when I got to the mic and I started to speak, all of those people disappeared because it was my time. I'm telling my story. And I think you have to get to a place like that. Like, I am important. My story is important. And they need to hear what I have to say because there's somebody out there that needs to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, yeah. And what drove you in this direction? Was there like a defining moment where you said, look, people aren't listening to me and I have something to say?
I think it was a build-up over the years. Like, I come from a big family, like I said, and everybody talks at one time. And I never, ever, you know, somebody could say the exact same thing I could say, and it sounded so much better. You know, and then, you know, I think it was just a journey for me because it seemed like every time I did something or came across something, it was in this direction. So I'm a writer, so I started writing for other people and different things. And finally, I got where I write for fashion houses. And the reason I went that direction was, for one, they really pay good.
Sure.
But two, these women have a story. I mean, what they wear, most people's going to understand this. What we, as women, when we wear something, you own it. You know, so it becomes a part of your personality. It becomes a part of, you know, who you are.
Yeah.
So it actually gives you that extra boost or that extra confidence.
Yeah, you know, and being aware of how you're presenting yourself to the world, how you hold yourself. There's, you know, like, I'll have therapy sessions with clients, you know, whether it's male or female, and the posture, you know, reminders of, like, you know, I'm curious if you notice that when you were saying that, you were hunched over, you know, your head's down, you know, all those things, but also, you know, the way that you present yourself when you walk out the door, and all of that starts when you're taking care of yourself and having I think the self-esteem to start building that, and then seeing that it gets good responses and people, you know, are more comfortable around you. You know, I think these things are extremely important.
But you made a really good point, and you have to surround yourself with people that's going to uplift you. Yeah. You know, and if you're around people that's always like, okay, you know, like they mean well. They sometimes criticize, hoping that you would do better. You know, and I think, you know, you just need to surround yourself with people that are uplifting. Yeah. You know, and I've got a wonderful husband. He's like, you know, he would always say something positive. You know. Yeah. And he's always been like that. His family's like that. Yeah.
This is maybe a curve, because I want to hear more about your background and just kind of where that took off, becoming, you know, a prominent member in this group, and just for the ladies that are listening to hear some of, like, those success stories. But what would you say to young women who are looking for a good man like that?
They're hard to find, let me tell you. You know, I'll tell you how I met my husband. I met him. I had to really stop and think about this. I think I really met him when I was a senior in high school. My sister went to the University of Dallas, and she's like 3 years older than I am. But I love to dance. So when all the dances came, I'd just go out and spend the weekend with her. And we were up at the student lounge one time, and we were all our friends, we were all going to go out to eat. And I turned to my sister and said, well, you know, what are we waiting on? And she goes, oh, we're waiting on somebody to get off work. You know, one of the guys, you know, was working. And this guy came in. Finally, this guy came in. He had hair down to here. And I can tell you, he had a dress pants on, a jacket, and a tie. And the really funny thing about it, he took his lapels, and he pushed them up and down like this, and it made his tie go all over the place. But I thought, well, he's different. You know? Yeah. You know, and you know, a couple of years later, we started dating, you know, because he was different, you know, because he opened the door for me. You know, his parents had brought him up right, you know, and it's nice because he cared about me, and he treated me like a lady. Yeah. I was lucky, but there's good guys out there. There's still good guys.
Yeah, I think we've talked about this on this show, especially the modern age of dating, and what gets seen is, I think, what's always existed is just on display now, that there's always going to be a percentage of people that you probably don't want to settle down with or commit to, and they're not bad people, but for whatever reason,
Right.
they're not ready for those things. And those tend to be the loudest crowds. But one of the things you were touching on there, the whether it's the female support I have in my life, like my therapist, or just
Right.
people in the support groups that I'm a part of, always say is like, just show up and be the kind, goofy, fun-loving guy that you are. And maybe it's at church or one of your support groups or something. Someone's going to look over and say, you know what, this guy is nice to people all the time, and he's attractive. I'm going to talk to him, right? Subjectively, if they found me attractive, but not forcing or pressuring that. And it's nice to hear in your story that that's how it unfolded for you, and that's just the way it's done.
And he tells the most corny jokes. Let me tell you, we've been married a long time, and I'm thinking, I don't know whether they go in one ear or I can't remember all of them, or he has so many, but he's always coming up with stuff like that, and he's always making me laugh. So, they're hard to find, but they're out there.
Yeah. It's also encouraging too, because like in my younger years, I would spend time in the dating world with those who wouldn't laugh at my stupid jokes, and that was a waste of time, because I'm full of them too, and it's important to have someone who's in your corner.
Yeah, and we dated a long time. We both had careers that we wanted to see where they went, and so we dated a long time, and there's nothing wrong with that. We always knew we would get married.
Yeah.
We just I like somebody to come and pick me up.
Yeah.
I mean, I can do it myself, but it's nice every once in a while, somebody and treat you like a lady.
Yeah, and builds that foundation with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. But I know I have a daughter, and she goes, "Well, Mom, we don't do that anymore." I says, "Well, maybe you should." No.
Well, as a clinician, I would agree with that sentiment.
Yeah.
It's like maybe we shouldn't be listening to TikTok and Instagram on how to date. Maybe we should be listening to the older generations who held down marriages and raised kids.
Yeah, for a long time.
Yeah, for a long time.
Yeah. So, but our parents were like that. So we had good examples, and sometimes that's not the case in a lot of, a lot of people.
Yeah, and I think, especially with some of the topics that we've tackled on this channel, I'm sure those who follow and check in weekly know, like, we talk about the percentage of society where that may be not the case, and there's a little bit more chaos. But what I always try to remind people is, like, even in those chaotic environments, people are just doing the best they can, but it's also not the biggest percentage of society.
Right.
I was talking with a handful of people this week of, like, when I was younger, and friends would be like, "Oh yeah, I called my mom just to check in," and I used to think, because of like the environments I was raised in, like, it sounds weird. I used to think that was weird, and then so I have a bunch of clients who are kind of discovering their self growth and recovery and those things, and they crack up because they've had those thoughts too. But I always remind them, it's like, that was weird to me, but that's the way the world works. People stay in touch. They need community. They stay in touch with their family, because it's a sacred bond that you don't get a lot of time in.
That's right.
And I don't think if it wasn't for my recovery, I'd be in touch with my parents the way I am today. And it's just nice to see that there's other people in real time who value these things.
And when it happens, if you have kids, you raise them that way.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of times, they sometimes go off. But they'll be back, But I'm saying, I have a daughter, and we have a daughter, and she's just real close, and daughters happen to be closer to their dads. That's just the way they work, But it's so funny, because when she calls or something, it's like when kids get to a certain age, it's like, okay, you're not talking to them as a child anymore.
Yeah.
They are like equal.
Yeah. Here's a nuanced thing that I think ties into your whole message of being heard, is when you're sharing, and I'm listening to you talk about your relationship, you use we. And I think that's a big thing in modern dating that gets talked about, is like, well, these are my finances, my kids, my situation, and it's never we, and I think it's just such a great reminder in the subtle ways of, like, it's an equal platform. It's an equal playing field.
That's right.
There is no winner. right? And if there is, then everybody loses. Yeah.
Right. And that's the thing. If you have kids, don't talk to them like they're, if they're adults, or talk to them like adults. Don't talk to them. When they're small, you have to raise them and teach them and stuff. But when they get a certain age, it's like, you're almost on equal footing.
Yeah.
And you have to respect what they believe in. They might think what we believe in is not really cool, but
Yeah.
you have to let them be them, and that's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm kind of entering that era where the things I think are cool, kids are looking at me like, oh my God, it's cringe.
Right. And see, they're
Gabe is laughing. He knows.
Right. Because their voice matters. What they have to say is important. So, and it comes all full circle around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, when you were doing the National Women's Association, I probably butchered what it's actually called, but is that close enough to?
Yeah, it's ABWA, American Business Women Association.
Gotcha. Was that when you were doing these speeches and gaining this position, were you already? This is when you were raising kids and?
Oh no,
recently.
My daughter was probably in high school at the time,
okay.
so
Yeah.
No, I needed. I was when you're in business, especially being female, you're in business. You need. The American Business Women provides women scholarships to go back to school.
Oh, okay.
They also actually they give you they have what you call a national conference, and you can go, and they have tracks that you can go take to actually help you in business, whether it's whatever tracks they had that year. So I mean, it actually, and then you meet people from all around the world that you can actually tie into your business with. So it's a really kind of a cool thing.
Yeah. How would a woman who's listening to this, because it tends to be a lot of females that listen to this show because of the topic of mental health, and how, if they're listening to you and they're like, whoa, that sounds really cool, how would they get involved? Would they just go to the website that they have?
Yeah, it's called abwa.org. You can just put that in, and it should pop up right there.
All right.
Yeah.
Are they going to get a chance to see you up on stage again talking and sharing your story?
Maybe as a speaker.
Yeah.
Well, I have to tell you this story. I have lots of stories. I was asked, I'm a writer, so I got this call from Maryland one day, and I'm thinking, well, that's really weird, And anyway, the lady came on the phone, and she says, "Is this Rebecca Dollinger?" And I go, "Yes." And she told me who she was, and she says, "You have been, let me get this right, handpicked by the advisor to the president on domestic violence to actually sit in on this conference that's in Dallas and be the head writer." And I'm going, whoa. The first thing that came to my mind was, man, they checked me out before they even picked up that phone. So it was on domestic violence, and I kept talking myself out of this because this is, I don't do this type of writing. Mine's really pretty and fluffy and everything's nice. So anyway, I said, I won't be the head writer on the first one. I'll do it on the second one. So the first one was government stuff, Yeah. The second one was Native American and Alaskan women. The whole thing was on, they have advocates that come. Yeah. And they come to these conferences. And it was so heavy. It was like when I walked in, there were 4 chairs there, and they all had these little blankets over them. So I leaned over to the girl that was in charge, and I says, well, what's all this about? She says, those are the ones that didn't make it this year. 2 advocates and 2, I don't like to call them victims or not. They're just, So anyway, and it was just such a heavy thing, and finally I just had to go take a break, And I'm trying to write this and not be emotionally, attached to it. So I got out to the lobby, and I sat down, and this lady came up, and she says, "Can I sit here?" And I said, "Fine," And she turns to me and she says, "I don't know why I come here every year." She says, "They don't understand that our culture, you don't get anything, you don't get the support you need or anything unless you have, unless you brag about what you do." And she says, that's not in our culture to do that. Yeah. So I says, why don't you tell me your story? I'll leave out your name, but just the area you come from. And she goes, why? She says, I'm the writer. I can put anything in these reports I want to. So I wrote her whole story. And I thought, well, maybe that's a way you could actually, these are women that have no voice.
Yeah.
This is maybe a way that they can actually get the help they need, because Alaska and Native American domestic violence is so much different than.
Yeah. Well, the reservations, they, I'll speak sparsely on this. I know enough. I could always know more, but they're not protected under the same federal laws that we're protected under, and their agencies that would protect under that are slammed.
Yeah. But it was I was put there for a reason.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, I'll use my voice to help her use hers.
Yeah. And you did this a couple years ago, or this was recent?
It's been about a couple of years ago.
Nice.
Yeah.
And so for those listening, because we may have crossover from your show, and they probably know, but I'm sure there's some here, and definitely on my platforms. You do writing, but you also do copywriting and just different forms you mentioned for like the fashion side of things, some political writing. Could you, for those who don't know kind of like the background of copywriting or the types of writing you do, could you?
Well, copywriting is a lot of like people need stuff done. That's how you start off in copywriting. You do a little bit of everything, and then you find out what you specialize in that's really important, that you do the best. And mine was fashion, But I wrote for a lot of different things, and so I mean, it always kept coming back to women, and it's so yeah. I've done a lot of stuff, kind of out there, but in the last few years, it kind of all fell into fashion and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But making women feel beautiful and worth, everything, letting all their good things come out, it's wonderful to do that for people.
Yeah, and I think there's an emerging era where it's becoming more and more, I don't want to say accessible, right? Because I think it's been accessible for some time with a push, but more and more is telling their stories. More and more women, the guests, like I'll reach out to all kinds of people, and the women are ready to tell their stories. They're ready to come and promote their businesses. And I have one gentleman. I mean, I've been going back and forth with him for weeks. And it's like I've had multiple guests at this point. It's like, just come on, man, just come and tell your story. But I think women are itching and ready to speak and share their expertise.
And they've gotten better over the years, because they found their power. They found their footing, And to me, there's nothing worse than somebody having a story inside them that they don't share, because if you don't share it, you can't help anybody else, and you can't help yourself.
Yeah.
So when you share it, to me, when you share something, like maybe the story that I told, it actually like maybe cuts it in half. It's not as scary as you might have thought, or you might hear it a different way.
Yeah.
So.
And one thing I've noticed since I've come on here with my show is that not only are you an advocate of sharing stories, and you share yours, and your show does well, but you're so supportive, right? I watched, like I remember it was my first show I ever did here, and the first person who liked it was you.
Oh yeah.
And it's you're very supportive and just very gracious, and it's nice to get to sit down with you and hear your story a little bit more and share it with the people who listen to this, because I know that we talk predominantly about mental health here, and I think there's just a need to branch some of those topics out to the other niches in the world where people are living in their mental health and connecting with people. And we talked a little bit about how like this place, Fishbowl Radio Network, is a little bit of a melting pot of a community, but having a community is so important.
Yeah, and when you have a community, you always feel connected, for one, but you feel like that whatever you say, it's okay. I mean, nobody's going to judge you for it.
Right.
I've always been a type of person that talked to strangers. It's funny. I just I'm just real friendly. Maybe that's part of being Texan.
I'm finding that, for those who know me on this show, I just moved here to Texas. My whole family is from here, and but I was born and raised in California, and it's not that Californians aren't nice.
Oh, no.
I mean, they're nice people, but when I walk out to go get my mail, here, if the neighbor's outside, they wave, they make compliments about my dog, we have a conversation about our pups,
Right.
and when I was back in California, I could go every single day to get my mail, and I'm never learning anything about my neighbors. They're not stopping to talk to me. California, especially on the coast, is just so hustle and bustle.
Yeah. Just a different way of life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's really it. It's just there's a different way of life out here.
Yeah. And that doesn't mean it's bad or good. I mean, it's
it's just
it's
an observable thing.
Yeah. I have friends in California.
I will say this: the drivers here are wild.
Yes, they are. Yeah. Yeah.
All the agreements in
The
this
Western
room.
America.
Yes.
Dude. When I was moving here, just quick tidbit, I was hauling my Jeep, and I had this big old moving truck. No problems the whole way here. I get into Dallas, and instantly people are cutting me off. I'm like, oh my God, it's a wild
what's
west.
in the water out here. I really don't. Like.
Yeah, I know. And, sometimes I wonder if people are in such a hurry. They just, I don't know. They think that they're the only person on the street, I guess.
I suppose. Yeah, they really want me to hear their story. They're going to crash into me to tell it.
There you go. And then you probably get a really good airdrop.
Yeah. So I'm also curious, just kind of from one radio show host to another. What are your kind of visions, hopes with kind of what you want to do with your show and who you're hoping to reach, and just also what if someone who listening to mine wants to pop over to yours, what they can expect to see you doing and getting into.
Well, we have. I love my show. It's just there's so many different kinds of people that come on. We talk about just about everything, and this has to do with the women too. Like we just had on this lady. Thursday, she was really, really neat. Like I said, I told you I knew her for years, but she's a speaker, and she's gone around and just so a lot of times the speakers actually they do certain topics, and some of those are really help you with your business, or some of them are really help you with your personal stuff, and it's just we just talk heart to heart. Soul to soul. Yeah,
there's something very genuine about your show when I pop in, even if it's just you there for the day doing your show. There's something honest and genuine. You can sit down and listen, and it's like you're listening to or chatting with a friend, and it's very approachable.
I think Gabe knows all my whole family stories over here.
Definitely, I've heard a lot of stories over the years. So
and so as odd as his family's a lot like mine. So
a lot of similar. We've talked about it a lot on here too. So just some of the different experiences and dynamics.
This might be a good segue too, because people who watch my show have gotten very accustomed to Gabe. But Gabe, real quick, is you're heading off on just a huge opportunity for yourself, and you want to tell us just real quick a little bit about it?
I'm headed to DC. I'll be interning at a company called Sound Exchange. Sound Exchange is a performing rights agency for artists and entertainers and performers. So anything that you hear on movies, radio, whatever, they help with licensing for those platforms. And so they're one of like four different performing rights agencies that radio stations and like Fishbowl have to provide licensing rights to.
Nice.
So with that being said, I'll be working in the legal department and helping out with a case kind of connected to Sirius XM, and they're being sued for like $100 million or something crazy like that. They were telling me in the interview. And so I'll be helping out working on that case and like kind of doing some research and investigation and learning about all things licensing rights. So looking forward to it. Music is the music industry, the music business is like my world. That's my space. So it's exciting to actually be able to work in that space for permanently. So looking forward to it.
And if they make an offer to you after that internship, you're staying out there.
Yeah, I mean, one, I gotta love the city.
Yeah, there you go.
Because I got a lot of options. I'm graduating school next year, so in March. So I got a ton of options on the table. But it just all depends on the right fit. So I'm letting go and letting God and seeing what happens. So
yeah, there you go. There you go.
There you go.
Either way, man, I wish you the best.
Thank you.
You've been just such an invaluable part of starting this show here, and you've made it so easy to get started, taking care of the technical stuff, but also having just wonderful, in-depth conversations, man. You're gonna. I'm sure I can speak for all of us. You're gonna be missed here, bro.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And you guys will be missed as well. I've been in Fishbowl for about 3 years, so it's gonna be different being in a new city.
Yeah.
Not being here. So
We'll just text you.
Right. I'm just a phone call or a text away. So I'm not far.
What are you doing? What are you doing that?
Exactly.
No, we really hope you the very, very best.
Yes, thank you. I
So
appreciate
when
it.
you get real famous, we'll say, well, we know you,
Yeah.
you and when.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yes,
But-
ma'am.
I'm excited for you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So, if you had a young lady who was, let's say, listening to your podcast, or they were seeking your professional guidance in how to take care of themselves and their fashion, maybe you've compiled something like this, maybe not, but I'm going to put you on the spot. What would be, you could choose however many bullet points, 3, 5, 10. What would be your bullet points of like, okay, here's where you should start, then do this? What would be your bullet point list to help them start to better align their fashion and take care of themselves to present their voice and their image to the world?
Well, I used to model, so this is really easy.
All right, let's hear it.
First of all, you need to look in the mirror and tell yourself and talk to yourself. I mean, a lot of times, we can always always see the things that need improvement, but we don't really see everything that's good about us. So if we, first of all, tell yourself you love yourself, you love the way you look. I mean, we all have improvements. But I would tell you, there's nothing better than actually knowing how to sit and stand and walk. And a lot of times that sounds kind of, unless you've modeled, unless you've done stuff like that old school, just by the way you stand, it gives you more confidence. It actually makes your voice louder. It actually, for me, it gives me more, not only more confidence, but it gives me a better sense of myself. And like it's from the inside out.
Yeah.
So just, put your posture back and, and you have to self-talk yourself a lot of times, I always tell them, always look in the mirror and always say to yourself, I'm beautiful. No matter, and when you're beautiful, you wear things that make you feel good. And wear what makes you feel like you. I always like to dress up. That's just me. But you can look good in jeans, yeah. But whatever, you have to take care of you first. And that is so, so important. Because if you get married and have family, you still have to take care of you first.
Yeah.
And that's really hard for a lot of women. Because if you don't take care of you, then you don't, you get where you don't feel good, and you get the poor me's and, and
Yeah, the age-old, there's no such thing as the innocent victim.
yes.
Yeah, we can always follow the bouncing ball back to the breaking point that we stop taking care of ourselves, and I think it's a wonderful call out.
Yeah. And two, this is, I'll say this for moms. My daughter has a totally different way of styling than I do. And if you have kids like that, let them go. Let them experiment, and, her style fits her. Yeah. It's perfect. But don't try to, even if it's not your daughter or whatever, just don't try to make somebody, whether it's your sister or whatever, don't try to make them like you. You know, they have their own personalities, so they're always going to wear different stuff.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Yeah, the concept of dignity.
Yeah.
You know, let them build that dignity. And this is also the same like when we're dealing with people in clinical settings who are really struggling to put their lives together. Don't do it for them. All right? Don't. You can teach them information, but don't go and try to get them to do the healthy thing. They have to want to do the healthy thing for themselves. And, you know, especially when it comes to fashion, it's like, well, that's a very subjective choice in what's healthy for you, because if you wore what someone else is telling you looks good, but you don't like it, you're still going to feel not good about it.
Yeah, and if you're, yeah, right, whether it's your girlfriend or your daughter or whatever, sometimes you have to just bite your tongue. You know, if they feel good in it and they love it, let it go. You know, and you know what? They become that person that they're supposed to through fashion.
Yeah.
You know, that's how that's how that most women do. They, through fashion, you know, you're actually telling the person and telling the world who you are.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. I have a buddy. Well, I mean, he's a mentor to me, and he always tells me, not just in the realms of dating and communicating with women, but just in life, to never miss a golden opportunity to shut the fuck up. And I love that statement. Yeah. But what I'm hearing from you is that part of the feedback from the female perspective for me as a man is to never miss that golden opportunity. Let her communicate with you what she likes. And so for you men listening, and probably the 2 or 3 of you who are, just bite your tongue.
Yeah. It's hard, but it works out in the end. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
You know? And you're proud of them. You know, they're in own individual. And you know, I think this made a big difference because when I was growing up, my mom could sew anything. So I was always saying, well, why can't I have like this and this and this? You know, and like I'm going to a skate party or something. So she'd make me an outfit. You know, and I said, well, why don't we alter it right here and there and yonder? And you know what? I mean, that was made especially for me. Yeah. You know, and then when I wore it, you know, I had confidence. I knew I looked good.
Yeah. Do you still have any of those pieces?
Yeah. You know, I'm the same size I was when I was in high school.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. My grandma, she sewed blankets for all of us when we were kids, and those are just some of my most cherished possessions. Yeah.
Yeah. If you look at my closet, I have a dress. My mom made it for me. It's leopard skin, and she made that to me when I was a senior in high school. I know you're all thinking like, you really need to get rid of that, but I can still fit into it. Yeah. But those are, you know, for me, clothes holds memories, and I imagine, you know. And I think my husband's the same way. He has stuff that, I wore this one, you know, I took you out on your first date, you know, or whatever, you know, or anniversary, or when we took a cruise. So to me, yeah, clothes do hold a lot of memories.
Yeah. I still have like a lot of sentimental, like I'm a T-shirt collector. So like I played baseball for 19 years, and so like all my high school baseball shirts, my junior college baseball shirts, my college baseball shirts, all the hats, I have all of them. Yeah, I may sew them into a blanket someday. We'll see.
Yeah. But see, there's nothing wrong with that.
No, I think it's beautiful.
No. Yeah. Because when you get old and gray, that's all you're going to have is memories.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it's kind of nice because it brings back. It just brings back good memories. I don't think I hang on to anything that has bad memories.
Yeah. So, if we pivot a little bit, I noticed that you had a real interest in some of the topics that we were talking about here on the show with the mental health stuff, and I'm curious, just kind of what you've heard that you liked, and what you want to maybe expand on, or just if you had questions for us here as well, and just kind of tease this out a little bit.
Well, I'm a psychology major.
Yeah.
So anyway, to me that was knowing how your mind works and why you do what you do, answers a lot of questions in life. It's almost like you get gut level honest. And to me, that is something that I hold dear, is to know who I am, and what I value. And it doesn't matter whether people agree with you or not.
Yeah.
That's who you are,
Yeah.
and being comfortable with self, with all your little, you got good habits and bad habits and whatever. But, and understanding that I think at least people should take 1 or 2 courses
Sure.
in psychology just to understand that people don't do things to you.
Yeah.
They just do things.
Mm-hmm.
And we just take it personally.
That's a heck of a point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, to me, that was the most, when like kids, act up or grown-ups act up, there's something deeper there.
Mm-hmm.
Just don't judge them for what they're doing on the surface.
Right.
You have to look a little bit deep and realize that maybe they're hurting inside.
Yeah, and I love that you point out, because we've talked a lot on this channel about, or show, whatever you want to call it. We've talked a lot about radical honesty and accountability and those kind of things. And a cornerstone is to not take other people's behaviors personally. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody is trying to hurt you. Now there are the percentages of people where it can get to the point of escalation in their behaviors where they're completely out of control and they are trying to hurt you. Those are cases unique to themselves, that we could expand on a whole nother topic on a whole nother show.
Right.
But your everyday run-of-the-mill, someone cuts you off on the road, someone's acting up out in public, your significant other or loved one is saying rotten things to you, your kids are throwing a tantrum. It's not personal, all right? And there's an honesty in that where I don't have to put myself in the middle of this, but I could listen if I have the capacity for that, or I can remove myself if I need to. And there's a real balance that let's say I'm working with my clients week to week, where that's a lot of the work we're doing, is helping them find the balance of taking accountability for themselves in those situations, no matter how hard that can be. And we talk a lot in the realms of like just recovery and healing, which is, it's a fact finding process, but at the point you find the facts, you have to face them. All right, so it's fact finding and fact facing, and you can't do that unless you're honest, and you can't do it if you're taking things personally.
Yeah. And that's really the key right there, is being honest with yourself.
Yeah.
And that's really hard sometimes. If you look back and through all your life and everything you've done, since I'm a writer, that's what I do. If something bothers me, I start writing. And this is my trick. I write and write and write until I can't write anymore. And you go back and you read it once. Don't read it more than once. And when you read it, you realize, well, that's not what was in my head. It's something, you got all that on paper, and when you read the paper, it's totally different. And then you just rip it up and throw it away. You don't read it more than once. And then it feels like it's just, you cleansed, just like it's gone. It just was out of your head, out of your mind.
Yeah, there's... when I work predominantly with 12-steppers, so like, Alcoholics Anonymous and different 12-step programs of the nature. And there is such power, and there's a simplicity to it. When you're doing your 4th step, which is fearless and moral inventory, they say, put it on paper in black and white and be as clear and direct as this. And then they give you an example. Right. And those who fight that process, they struggle until they're ready to do it. And those who put it in black and white, I'll hear all the stuff like, oh, well, I've got it on my iPad, or I typed it up on the computer. That's great. You need to face it. All right. Well, what does that mean? I'm looking at my iPad. That's great, but there is a process of facing yourself. It's I forget which philosopher coined the term. You want to learn more about the world? Read a book. You want to learn more about yourself? Write it down. And there's just so much power in it. People's lives drastically change when they write things down.
That's absolutely true. It is. And I even pass that on to my daughter. If it's something bothering her, just write it down. But I'm very familiar with the 12-step program. And the Al-Anon program. I've had friends and family and everything else. So that to me is it makes a big difference. Even if you're a relative of a relative's, go.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of good stuff there that people that are it's not consumed by alcoholism or drugs or whatever. I think they still need to go. It's a good program for everybody.
Yeah, the principles of that program in any 12-step program are all concepts that every human on earth could benefit from. But you're right. I mean, no matter how removed we think we are from the direct alcoholism, right? We can tell ourselves we're not affected. We're all affected. And if my contention too as a clinician in the modern age is if you're living in the U.S., you're affected. There's a spectrum, right? To a degree, some are affected way more immediately in their family, but we're all affected generationally. I mean, it's the biggest epidemic we've ever had probably on earth is alcoholism, and it's documented all the way, back to when people could first write.
Well, I think a long time ago, it was so much. I think everybody knows about it now, but I think years and years ago when they all first started, I mean, people were dying.
Yeah. It's in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, it still refers to the first 300 or the first couple hundred, and now it's millions and millions. And the program's still a baby. It's it's not even 100 years old yet, but it's the first thing in history that's worked. And prior, when AA was getting set up, you can go and read like the doctor's opinions and stuff, and other medical professionals, the friends of the program, and they talk about straight up there was nothing we could do. The best we could do was tie them to a bed, and it's just like to read in a peer-reviewed journal, medical professionals saying like the only thing that works is tying them to a bed, and then AA branched off of the Oxford program, and they started to embrace that it wasn't just a physical and mental disease; it was a spiritual malady, and then it took off. And
it just and then the Al-Anon program, they were. I think they just started because of all the guys were doing their thing, and and then the women were sitting there and drinking coffee.
Lois, there's her initial writing, she talks about how they used to have the men's AA meeting in their living room, and then one day she goes out and sees that all the wives are lined up on the street outside, and she invites them all in for snacks and coffee, and that's the structure we're built on in the Al-Anon program to this day. And I'll tell you what, if you're listening to this, you've been affected, someone who's struggling with alcoholism, you feel like you don't like what they're up to, Al-Anon, there are people there who have the answers. They can help you out. They can help you detach. They can give you the information on the alcoholic. It's also not a bad idea to go to an open AA meeting, and they'll give you all kinds of information that's so helpful.
But too, I think if you live with it or love somebody that has an alcoholic, you get sick too.
Oh, absolutely.
Most, women like to control things,
Men aren't too far off either, but yeah.
So but I would also say, if you're living or know somebody or love somebody, you need to go to Al-Anon.
Yeah, we joke. I'll just a quick snippet. I keep my anonymity pretty close to the chest, but I'm a member of Al-Anon, and I have been for years. Good. And we joke in there that we're crazier than the alcoholic. I did all the crazy shit without drinking. At least they were drinking when they were nuts. I wasn't using any substances, and I was nuts, trying to control outcomes and, get them to get better. And it just, none of it worked. I was making myself sick. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah. Because you don't think straight.
Yeah. And that was, I found Al-Anon once I was already a clinician. So it's like, it affects anybody, anywhere. And, I was well into my career to the point of like, I'm researching these things on like a depth level that a very small percentage of people research. And still I was in my own hula hoop. I was lost in it.
Well, I knew a lady that her husband drank a lot, and, she always liked to control him, right? That's the way us women are. But anyway, she would actually go and try to find him at whatever, saloon or bar he was at, and they can make you crazy.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Calling around, checking to see, are they sitting at the bar? Yeah, God bless.
So, yeah.
So I have a quick little fun anecdotal question, and we're going to tailor this a little bit differently than if I were asking, maybe like a clinician. But who is your favorite childhood cartoon?
Oh, probably Felix the cat.
Felix the cat.
That dates me.
If Felix the cat were to come to you, what fashion tips and self-confidence tips would you give to Felix the cat?
Self-confidence tips. Well, you need to stand up a little bit straighter. Be you. I think that's the whole thing. Be yourself. If you get hassled by what you wear, put stuff on that makes you feel good. Even if your mom or your sister or your husband doesn't like it, it doesn't matter. Dress for you. And when you dress for you, you feel good inside and out.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And nothing's too elaborate, nothing's too sedate, Yeah. Just be you.
Definitely. Why don't you let the listeners know where they can find you and just the information again on your show, and then we'll wrap it up.
Well, they can find me here live Thursday on Fishbowl Studio from noon to 1. We talk about a lot. We talk about a lot of stuff. How your voice matters in the world and how we show up. You can. My email is tailored to you, and that's long. So TAILORED, like tailored, the number 2 YOU at RebeccaStylewriter.com.
And when I start posting this on the social medias, I'll make sure that those are in the description so that you guys can find Rebecca here. But thank you so much, Rebecca, for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
It was truly a pleasure.
Fun.
Absolutely. Yeah. All righty, guys. Well, check us out here Friday nights, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, Breaking the Cycle every Friday night. Remember, we break the cycle together. We love you. Bye.
Join Selah, host of Selah Speaks podcast, broadcasting live each Saturday from 5